Next up this evening is the family inductee, and almost every year my initial reaction is, how are they not in already? The Iacovangelo family is a classic American land of opportunity success story. Patriarchs Anthony and Elvira were raised in Italy. Elvira only attended school through the 3rd grade, Anthony not at all. They weren't going to let that be the fate for their children. 3 sons went to Aquinas and a daughter to Nazareth. And since 1980, at least one of Anthony and Elvira's grandchildren or great-grandchildren have been enrolled at Aquinas for 29 of 39 consecutive years. Very likely that will not be all. The names Gallo and Iacovangelo and Faber homes, which are well known in this community, are largely the result of the sacrifices that Anthony and Elvira made to get their children through Aquinas and Nazareth and fulfill their American dream. Now those children use their professions to protect 2 of the basic tenets of America: justice and opportunity. The education Aquinas provided has been paid back to Aquinas tenfold. The Iacovangelos have been builders, whether it's facilities, relationships, or the education of AQ's next generation. They check all the boxes. Please welcome to the podium the first Iacovangelo to graduate from Aquinas, class of 1958, Frank Iacovangelo.
Good evening, everyone. I'm the oldest of the Iacovangelo children, but I'd like my brother Bernie to stand up. I think you've all seen him before. I'd like my brother Tony to stand up and my sister Palma to stand up for a moment so you know who they are. And one of the things I'd like to tell you about Bernie, who's our youngest Iacovangelo, he looks quite a bit like my dad. And if you saw my sister Palma, she looks quite a bit like my mom. So in this room, I'm constantly reminded of my parents. Now, I just want you to know, and I don't want to repeat again what's already written in the book, is that this honor that comes to the Iacovangelo family is really only accepted by us. But it's really not our honor. The honor belongs to my mom and to my dad. And while I always gloss over the idea that my dad didn't attend school, I do remember many times in my very young years when my dad would pass a street sign or another sign, and he'd say to me, "Frank, you can read that sign, right?" "Yes, Dad." "Well," he says, "you keep doing that, keep studying, because I can't read that sign." My dad never went to school a day in his life, and there's probably nobody in this room who could stand in those shoes and know what it's like to be illiterate. I was 10 or 11 years old when I finally was able to teach my dad how to make his name. And that's as far as he got as far as formal education, but he was a very wise man. My mom went to 3rd grade, but I'll tell you, she was a very wise woman beyond the 3rd grade. They raised us with a kind, loving hand, but there were a few things that were absolutely critical. The first thing was they wanted to make sure that we got an education. You can imagine a man who can't read or write. If he has offspring, he wants them to be surely able to read and to write. Something so basic for us in this room that we can't conceive that a man doesn't have that ability. But Dad was really pressing us all the time to get an education. My mom was the same. But my mom was a little bit on the softer side. My dad was the disciplined side. When I began at Aquinas, or wanted to go to Aquinas, they were very pleased because, they were very strong in their faith. They were very simple people, but they liked the idea that I would be getting an education with a Catholic background to it. So they were very pleased. And of course, once I told my mom and dad about the Brazilian motto of goodness, discipline, and knowledge, my father jumped all over the discipline part and says, I'll handle that part. In any event, I don't want to bore you anymore with the idea of my parents and their wish for us to have an education. We did get to Aquinas, my brothers and I. My sister went to Nazareth Academy, and you know, thank God my children found Aquinas, and all 6 of them went. Bernie's children all went. The fact is, Aquinas has been a real tradition. My sister Palma's children all went, and she has 2 grandchildren who now are at Aquinas. Ma and Pa Iacovangelo's great-grandchildren are there. So it's quite a legacy that we have there. We want to thank very much anybody that's had anything to do with our receiving this award. There are legions of Aquinas alums and Aquinas families who have done so much for Aquinas and who have gone out into this world and done so much. And we're just average folk like our parents, but Aquinas was a part of our family. And so we continue to be involved and have been involved for many years. My brother Bernie continues to be involved with the construction and the facilities here at Aquinas. I would like to thank the committee again for inducting us or having us inducted into the Hall of Fame. And it's been an honor to be inducted with all the honorees, especially with my professor, Father Hetzler from St. John Fisher College. And of course, we have 2 inductees tonight who are marvelous examples of the Brazilian tradition. Thank you very much and good night.